Now, I mentioned that interfaces are used to define the structure of an object. Now, interfaces can also be used to define the structure of a function. So basically as a replacement for the function types you already learned about. Just as a quick refresher, we can define the type of a function, for example, with a custom type with the type keyword, add fn for add function, which then could hold a function definition like this. It should return a number and it should take 2 arguments where each argument also is of type number. Now we could create a new function, add here, which is of type add fn, and when we don't initialize it but assign our function later, then of course we have to make sure that this function takes 2 arguments which are of type number, and that in there we also return a number. This is something you can do. This is what you already learned. Now you can also use an interface as an alternative to this custom type. Interfaces are there to define the structure of an object, as I taught you, but in the end functions are just objects, and therefore this is a little exception. You can create function types with interfaces. For that you create an interface, name it addFn to still keep that name here, and now in there you define the function by just adding parentheses with your arguments, a number, b number for example, and then a colon, not an arrow, but a colon here with the return type. So in the end, like you would define a method, as we're doing it here with greet, with the exception that we're now not adding a method name. So we have an anonymous function, if you want to call it like this, in the addFn interface. And TypeScript understands this special syntax of this anonymous function in your interface and understands that you want to use this interface as a function type, and this is how your function should look like. So now we can use addFn here, and indeed if I would try to accept a string here, we would get an error because this is not assignable. We need to have a number instead of a string. So it's simply an alternative to this custom type. Of course, here I would argue using the custom type is probably a bit more common. It's also a bit shorter, but it's a nice alternative syntax to be aware of, especially if you encounter this in some project and you're otherwise lost what this means, this strange anonymous method. Well, it's in the end just a custom function type.